Welcome. Welcome to Satsang. Today we're going to explore awakening of inner knowing. The reason I'm mentioning this is also because of what I had said last Satsang was misunderstood, and I want to make something very clear. And there's always the understanding that inner knowing is something that you know specifically. And this is why many people read books, special spiritual books, and by reading the information they think they're actually being spiritual now and they know. But the real knowing is very subjective because it is the heart. So if we were to ask to an awakened human being, this is what is it that you know? Okay? So what would you say? If a person is awakened and you say, what is it that you know?
I know the isness.
Very beautiful. The isness, you see, it just is, isn't it? You know, many years ago, I realized that, you know, I read a lot. I've got a tremendous amount of books. I studied psychology. And I even met Ramana Maharshi, had a vision of him. But it wasn't until one day it came to me, it's all about love. All of it. Even what we call God is love. So what happened is that I began to see it everywhere. And as I saw it everywhere, I saw it also in emotional pain, because I was a hypnotherapist for 30 years. And that all emotional pain is really a seeking and a needing of love, wanting to belong, wanting to feel needed, wanted, appreciated, etc., etc. So it's all about that. And the more you feel it, the more you see it everywhere. You know, one time Buddha, after his awakening, he gave a talk to his devotees. And there were hundreds of them sitting there. And it always struck me when I read this, it stayed in my mind. And he never said a word. And so people were beginning to get restless after a while, not saying anything. He just looked at them. And then he held a flower in his hand, a rose, a beautiful rose, and he pointed it to the people. And he said, this is the truth. And a few people understood, and they had tears coming down their eyes, and they said, yeah, they understood what that meant. See, you know Henry Miller, the playwright? Mm-hmm. He said that if you pay attention to anything at all, even a blade of grass, you'll begin to see the miracle. And then your heart opens. And to the extent that your heart is opening, that is the real knowing in the heart, you see. Just one more quote that just came to me. Socrates said, the real wisdom is knowing that you don't know. Okay? So this is quite a paradox, because the moment you know that you don't know, that's not that's knowing. Just like I said about love, okay? You talk about love, and people are always asking me after a while, it says, Burt, you said, you know, everything is love, you know, and I said, yeah, I said, the earth rotating around the sun, my goodness, what does that? If it's not the power of love, you know, or a pregnant woman carrying a child, a fetus, and for 9 months, and then it's a full-blown human being, you know, isn't that, I mean, that's, when you begin to appreciate that, you begin to see it everywhere. And when you begin to see it everywhere, then even pain is part of that oneness, because there is either need for love, which is pain, or love itself. You see? So you're being love or seeking love. And when you begin to understand that dynamic, that's the knowing of love. But as you keep on going, now as I talk about love, and I said I've realized about love, you think I know something about love? No, I don't. I don't, because there's no limit to love. You can never know about love. Every day I'm learning something new about love. And I know what I read about this book that you introduced me to. I just put it inside. It's called
Love Without End.
Love Without End, and it's a talk with Jesus. But, you know, when I read this book, I'm still reading it. That's all he talks about. It's heart. Okay, it's turning towards the heart. So now I'd like to mention something that I said last week because I had a few objections to it. Last satsang I made a statement. And in this statement I said, all thought eventually leads to negativity. All thought leads to negativity at one more or another. I did explain that thought exists in past or future, never in the moment. Okay? And then I made a quote added to it, and I said, I'm not speaking about creative thinking, creative thought. Okay? But I had a few objections in the emails, and they said, well, Burt, I don't agree with you, because even in the Course in Miracles it says the thought of God. What is the thought of God?
Love.
Love. It is love, feeling, it's an inspiration, it's a prayer, it's a meditation, it's a focus on love. You see, that's the thought of God. But you see, because it has the word thought, people are thinking in terms of thought. You see, but the moment you are creative in the moment you're feeling that aliveness in the moment, okay, that very aliveness in the moment is love. And that is not a thought, because it is in the moment. The thought can never be now. The thought, if you just find yourself thinking, and you'll find that it's either past or future. And past is full of regrets and guilt, and the future is full of anxiety, you see, and worry. Okay, but then again, you might think, well, if thought is never now, and thought is negative, becomes eventually negative, then thought is bad. You see? You see how the mind thinks. And this is why the beautiful teaching of Jesus, that you have to turn to the heart, not the mind. The mind is always living in polarity. It's saying this or that, good or bad, right or wrong. But when you go to the nucleus of the thing, nothing is bad or good, because everything is one. You see, so thoughts remind me of clouds. Clouds, they're not good, they're not bad. They do what they do because that's nature. But what happens is that when the clouds start forming and becoming dense, they hide the sun. And as soon as they hide the sun, immediately the day is cloudy. The day is dark, and say, oh, there is no sun. But of course, in truth, we know the sun is always there, right? The clouds are hiding it. It's not the cloud's fault, it's not the sun's fault, it's simply the way it is working at the moment. It's creating something as if the sun is not there. Well, it's the same with love. Love is always there. It is always present. And in all negativity and in all our pain, there is always a need and a craving for it and a seeking of it. So now let's go back to the statement that I made, that thought itself is a word, and the word in itself is neither good or bad. It is semantics. And the English language, what language seems to have more expressions, more heart in it? It's in India. They call it the yes.
Yeah.
No. People study it. It's
Sanskrit.
Sanskrit. Thank you. Sanskrit. Yeah, Sanskrit seems to be more complete in the. As a matter of fact, even the word love. There are many expressions of love and different forms of love and understanding. Whereas in the English language, we say love, like, and that's about it. Fond of, and that's about it. But if you understand the very word itself, you find that the word is a mystery. You can never understand love. There is no way that you can ever understand it, because it just is. You see? So when we talk about God, we're really talking about love itself. For example, if we say to, what percentage, look at the universe, there are 12 universes. It's unbelievable. the space, you know, when you look at the stars, the planets, and then the world, the planets that have all the physical things. How much is matter and how much is spiritual, a spirit? What would you say, the percentage?
I think it's less than 1%.
Very good. Matter is less than 1%. Spirit is a little more than 99%. You see? It's quite something, isn't it? So now when you begin to understand that it is not what you've read, it is not what you've studied, it is not what you heard, but it is what you begin to feel inside, that you are that spirit itself. And when you begin to understand that you are that spirit itself, you know that you have nowhere to go but to that, to understand that it does everything through you. You know, everything is spirit. You know, even when we have, for example, wow, you know, last night I got up so many times, the cat was waking me up, that now my memory is bad. What is it that you use? The
laser?
The laser, right, okay. Now, for example, you use the laser and it creates healing, you see? Now, what is creating healing is those violet waves, right? Okay? And now, if we go into the spirit, we'll find that everything is made up of waves. First, there is just what we call spirit, just is, and then from that comes waves, and then from waves come particles, and particles becomes atoms, and atoms becomes molecules, and molecules become matter. Okay? But when we see matter, we say, oh, this is real. But it all came from nothing. Now, when we begin to respect the nothingness of everything, because everything is nothing, so therefore everything is pure being, everything is being, then we can say that we know something. But what is it that we know?
Nothing.
Nothing.
We know nothing.
We know nothing.
But
okay. So based on that, you know what I'd like to do is I have one very good question that someone sent. It's excellent. If you don't mind reading it.
Sure.
Okay. And then if we could just explore it together. And then there are some questions later on too, which I'd like to go into. And in doing this, what we're doing is that it's even the words that we're using, the words themselves are not the answer. What the answer is what the words are pointing to. Okay? So we'll break it down. Now, this is a very common question among people who have done a lot of study in non-duality. You've heard of non-duality, right? And he is typical. Read that.
Hi, Burt. Hearing and reading about non-duality has for me been a way of avoiding feeling. I've tried to use it as a way to escape from the ordinariness and the meaninglessness of being human. The desire has been to become pure awareness and to avoid fully embracing everything, especially the painful emotional bits. I felt that the emotional stories kept us separate, so encouraged the search for the oneness. When I began to suffer again, I became confused. Can you clarify?
Okay.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
It's a nice
it's well put, isn't it?
exposing of himself.
Yes, and the full exposition of himself.
Yeah.
The person who wrote it, congratulations, because that was even a breakthrough. You see, many times people say, yeah, I studied non-duality, which is a fact, you know. I mean, duality does exist, but at the same time it's all one. Everything is oneness. So when we go back, if you say non-duality is the only reality, therefore everything is illusion. Everything is unreal. Everything is illusion. But you see, a lot of people do that, and more masculine and more male energy does it than a female energy. Male energy, they go so intellectual that they say, well, nothing is real anyway, why bother? And it's a quick way to shut down emotional pain, you see? But what happens is that you cannot get away with that. Because when you shut down emotional pain, which is a need for love, which is a natural expression, you see, the moment you do that, it goes underground into the subconscious mind and creates havoc. And but even if you happen to be very intellectual and not much feeling, somehow you become a non-duality, you become detached, because these words have meaning to us. Become detached, don't be attached. But if you really do that in a ordinary everyday life, you find yourself, you're dying, not becoming alive. You see? So because the heart is the main thing, and the heart is a feeling, the heart is knowing. It's okay to cry. You know, there is a passage in this book that you told me to read. Again, tell me the title again.
Love Without End.
Love Without End by
Jesus Speaks.
Jesus Speaks by Glenda.
Oh, I can't say right now.
Anyway, yeah, Banyan has some copies. But what touched me about that is that she's talking to Jesus, and Jesus heard her story, her story of pain and how she did to come to the point where she actually had this experience of him. And she saw his picture, saw his vision, and he was crying by her story. So this is part where everything is hard. So why is it that male energy, which is more left brain, wants to avoid pain, avoid emotion? And very emotional people, they get lost very easily, which they lose the rationale or the logic of it. So how do we balance that? How do we understand both? Because both are necessary. What do you feel?
Well, the feeling that comes from me is that experiencing anything is experiencing God. And
Beautiful.
Trying to go nither or hither makes no difference. You're missing it.
Missing it, the wholeness, isn't it?
And so whether you're leaning to, I will be emotional and big-hearted and that will take me through, and I won't be rational, or whether you're thinking, I know the answers, and once I know, nothing can touch me. Both of those are just shielded nonsense.
That's right. And they are shields. Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. It veils us from the very heart itself, you see. And also we rely so much on thought. And this is why I said thoughts always leads to negativity. What I meant is that it's not creative thought. The mind is thinking all the time, okay? Because thoughts are collective from your background, from your conditioning, from your religions, from your past lives, from everything. So this is all collective. And so these impressions are coming to you all the time. So there's nothing wrong with that. But the moment you pick a thought and you make it real and you think about it, it always leads you to negativity. Always. And in my 30 years of hypnotherapy, this has proved it. You know, that people think, and before you know it, in a little while they are sad, or they are according to what they are thinking about. It takes over. Okay? Why is that? Because we have relied so much on the mind that we have forgotten the heart. In other words, you're a human being. You're a being playing the human role. You see? And we reversed everything. And the heart is there to lead us, to guide us. The mind is there to be our slave. Because if you make the mind your slave, then you become very creative. My gosh, the power of mind is incredible. Look around, you know. The whole world is created by mind. You see? It's all creative thought. It's the power is immense. But the moment you place precedence to mind, you lose heart. Yeah.
Could you give us an example of the difference between a creative thought and a thought that will lead to negativity?
Okay. A creative thought is when you bring something to the moment. You see, let's discuss the moment here. Okay. The moment is the only reality we have. There is nothing but this moment. Okay. Now this is very important, and the now doesn't say there's heart or there's mind in the moment. Okay. What the moment says, it is what is happening is in the moment. Now when you begin to deal with the moment as it actually is, and you see it as it is without getting caught in the story. Now this is essential because the story is always the past. Okay? So if you don't get caught in the story and you see it as it actually is, it leads to creation. Now the creation happens this way. Let's say all of a sudden a lot of feelings came to me, thoughts, but I am aware because I've realized the now. The now is all that there is. The now is the only power. You know, nothing. And how? When does now end? When does now end?
Now.
Never. When did it begin? And when did it begin? Never. Right? Ah, now we're beginning to see. So when you take everything that is happening now, suppose you're crying over a lost love. Suppose you're really hurt about something. It is happening now, isn't it? The happening is happening now. A fear is always in the future. The anxiety about the fear is in the body. The anxiety is in the body because of what might happen, what you think is going to happen. But whatever is happening the moment you bring it together into the now and accept it and embrace it as the now, without a story, without the past or future into it, the moment you bring it to the present, it becomes creative automatically. And this is how we grow. And incidentally, I'm very happy that you've asked me that question, because the whole process of knowing is to bring everything into this moment. Everything. Denying nothing, rejecting nothing, surrendering to what is. Let's give an example. Could you give me an example of some pain you've had? And something that you personally experienced, if you share it.
For me, it was just getting ill from being at a job where there was a lot of electricity and computer stuff, and not being able to stay there. So there was a stress on that because it's making money, but then it was making me sick.
Yes, yes, right. Okay, so now at the moment you realize that this is what is making you sick. In this moment you are seeing it. Okay, so now when you see it in this moment that it is making you sick, and you're completely convinced that this is so, this is what is making you sick. What happens when you embrace it and you say, well, this is what is happening, this is what is right now? What happens? You become creative. You quit your job.
You leave.
Leave, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's creative thinking. So creativity is anything that the moment you accept the now as it is in its totality, in its completeness, without making it wrong or right, that's not important, okay? You see it as it is because it is now. The moment you bring it to the now, everything that you bring to the now becomes whole. If you bring fear into the now, it becomes love. People don't know that. They think that if you focus on fear, you're going to be more fearful. No, not at all. Because if you look at a fear, really look at it, okay, you find there's nothing there. It was just a thought. It's a feeling. So, yeah.
I was going to say before, too, when you were asking the question as to the masculine energy and why that it's hard for them to accept things, in a sense, is how I heard it. It was, what came up was that it's the fear of something rather than the thing being fearful. We always fear something. It's more fearful before we actually get there than when we actually meet it. And that's exactly what you're talking about.
That's beautiful. That's very beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, what is fearful is not the fear. It's about it. My God, I'm going to die in another few hours, for example. You see what I mean? My whole body is anxious, is feeling that fear, about the fear. But it is not the fear itself, because the fear itself, there's no fear in it. If the moment you're in it, the moment your head is chopped off or you're hung or whatever happens, you die.
That's
You're
right.
in that moment.
So, yeah. So it's more about the fear than the fear itself. It's okay. So when you bring it into the moment itself, you begin to see that all that there is in this moment is this divine love, this beautiful state of being, which is so perfect, and we keep missing it because we think so much. You see, we try to figure things out instead of being with some. But the moment you allow everything to be what is in the moment itself, it melts and becomes creative. You see? And that's how we become creative. People who have a lot of courage. Now, when you say courage, how do you acquire courage? You don't acquire it. You just be in love with truth. I want the truth, and that's it. You see, the moment you want truth, because truth is love. And when you, and love is this moment now. There's nothing but love anyway. And only love works, nothing else works. You know, some people argue and fight and this and that, thinking I want to be right and you are wrong. And they're thinking that if I win, I'm going to win. Nobody wins. When there's no love, nobody wins. You see? So, yeah.
Well, in some ways, it appears to me that there's a lack of trust in life makes us go to our own devices, which isn't really our own devices. It's our mental clattering and programming, because we don't believe that melting into life in that moment, that life itself will show us more and where to go and how to go, because we don't want to lose control to life itself, which is crazy.
Beautiful. Because now, when you accept everything in now, it's a surrender.
It is.
It's a surrender, yes. And that's the creativity. That's the beautiful creation. See? And that's how healing happens. You know, it's an amazing thing. And I've seen people actually, I'm not personally there, but I've heard of people actually reaching cancer remission the moment they forgave what caused it in the first place. They were able to see, and there was a clarity in the moment. And the moment they saw it and allowed it, the doctor says, oh, you went to remission. We don't know how, we don't know what caused it. But you see, how can you explain? It's all spirit, it's all love, it's all this. This is the creation. So the greatest creation is when you bring everything into the moment. You see? And then what is left is that thing which you're focusing on. Because now you bring it into its fruition. I was talking to Carmel, and I said, one thing I learned how to channel into truth is by random writing, you know, writing into the moment. And I used to sit down and write nonsense. You know, what is happening? I am now writing, my fingers are moving, and I'm feeling a little hot and bothered, and I wonder if I'm going to last 20 minutes. And keep on writing and writing and writing. But something happens as you keep on writing. You reach a point after 15 or 20 minutes when you begin to talk about the real issue. It just comes. You come to it and you start writing about it. And the moment you start writing about it, there's the creation itself. And so you are hearing what you wanted to hear. You see, this is the Spirit. The Spirit is alive in us. And it comes in that moment of allowing, that moment of surrender in the now, completely. See? There's a few questions here which will help us to go deeper. What is the difference between knowing and understanding?
I would venture understanding follows some kind of chain of events. It's A because of B and C and X.
Very good, yes.
And
It's intellectual, isn't it? Yeah.
knowing is a now concept.
Yeah.
Knowing does not have a past and a future. It has a truth in the moment. It doesn't have any what I would call prostitute thoughts.
Right.
It's a direct, raw experience of what is.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it's been said that true spirituality is pure intelligence. And when we talk about intelligence, that's what real intelligence is. Even wisdom is an basic intelligence. It is a knowing, but not knowing something.
Yeah.
It is the heart that is ever so present that it sees clearly. Yeah.
A chapter in the book that Love Without End, it's called "The Heart is the Higher Intelligence."
Oh yeah, that's right, yeah. The highest intelligence is the heart. Okay, what's the purpose of satsang? Now, right now I'm talking as if I know it all, and I'm playing teacher, and I enjoy doing this because I've learned so much through doing it. So, what is the purpose of satsang?
Saying meeting ourselves. Meeting ourselves.
Meeting yourself, isn't it? Beautiful. Such wisdom words. And that's it. You're not learning anything new. You're meeting yourself, and that's how you expand. You expand the heart all the time. You keep expanding. So you don't know something. You see, you don't hear somebody goes on a lecture or on a podium and they say, "This is, oh, I see, now I know something." And then you say to yourself, "But you know, I know all that, but I cannot live it. How come?" Well, of course you cannot live it. Because you thought you knew something. You know, what you can live is what you know in the heart, not in your mind. You see? You know, we know the difference between mind and heart, right? Okay, it's a pleasure having you both here. Great, you know.
I was going to say that I came to that sort of heart realization many years ago, doing lots of meditating. I've been meditating for centuries. And, and I go to that place and I say to myself, what would it be like to be in a place where thoughts weren't dominating me? I mean, thoughts were fine and they can just do whatever they do. But what would the place be like that wasn't full of thoughts, that was just empty of thoughts?
Empty of thoughts, yeah.
And then when I go to that place and I describe it to myself, then I'm in it. And the magic about it, which I always think is amazing, is that as soon as you're actually in it, the heart just goes open, like that. And then I went, oh, it's just automatic, then it is love, because that is what's behind all this stuff when you go there.
Yeah.
And I thought, why does keeping my mind still open my heart? And then I realized, because the open heart is everything. And when you're outside of form, the form of thoughts and ideas and things, you get to slip into the truth of it, and the truth ends up being your heart opens.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I always thought it was so magical, and now I still think it's magical.
It's magical. I've never heard it put better than you have put it. That's beautiful. So your heart is open now. You see? And these words are so beautiful, aren't they? So when we're able to talk from the heart, is because the heart is open, and the mind is able, because the mind is in the back, able to put it in words. You see? And that is the magic. But there is no teacher, there is no student, there is no particular. There is nothing.
And everything.
And and there is everything. Yeah. And when you begin to see clearly that the two are one, and there's only that oneness, that becomes the beauty of the heart. You see? Yeah. Okay. Let's take something else here. So the whole point of the teaching, they say that to reach stillness, to reach silence of the heart, so that the heart opens, like you so beautifully put it. So is thought necessary?
Just on the practical level.
And why do we need the practical level?
To function in form.
And why do we need to function in form?
Because we're here.
Because
we're here.
We choose to come.
And why are we here? We chose to be here, yes. Why did we choose to be here?
Well, That's a big question.
So we could experience this.
That's right.
Yeah.
We want to experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, excuse me, you know, the first experience of the human on earth especially is the third dimension. You see, and the third dimension is all matter. Everything is solid, good and bad, black and white. You see? Until we reach the fourth dimension, which is all more feeling and greater heart. And then the fifth dimension, which are now actually many people are functioning through, is unconditional love. And this is when we learn that you are never learning anything. You're just opening your heart to know that there is only unconditional love. And so what we call God is unconditional love, you see? Yeah. So, wonderful, wonderful. If ego is the problem, why not get rid of it?
I've asked myself that many times.
Okay, let your heart speak. Let your heart speak. If ego is the problem, why not get rid of it?
It's like wrestling with a thought. You're wrestling with a ghost that you created, and that only gives it a reality that it in fact doesn't have.
Yeah.
So the ego is not the boogeyman.
Right.
The truth of who we are does not have. We can function through this face, but we are much. We are the energy that comes through that face. We are not identified with the face itself. We can love the face, we can love the ego and all its tricks. Is it a better way to go than to try to wrestle it down and punch it out?
It's just like the shadow. The shadow is a shadow. It always follows you when you're out in the sun. And if you try to run away from it, you'll be exhausted, but it will still be there, catching up with you. It's the same if you try to get rid of the ego. So since you can allow yourself to look at the ego then, and what is ego? And then you find there's nothing there, except you trying to control and trying to be separate, when in truth is just a lie we've been telling ourselves.
Yeah, I had that just the other day. I had an experience with that ego was there to show me non-ego, to show me what ego isn't.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of seeing it.
So it was like my child, and I was I don't know, I was out in the street looking at people, and then I noticed a part of me was judging, and I was going, oh, that woman, yeah, she shouldn't cut her hair like that. And why is he wearing that? And then all of a sudden I just had this separate differentiation. I went, oh, there's my little child ego just doing its thing. Like, oh yeah, that skirt's too short. And, and I went, and so I was this consciousness that was non-ego, that understood what the ego was doing.
Right.
And it was a really nice feeling because I therefore did not feel locked into it anymore. I just went, it's just doing its thing.
It's doing its thing.
Yeah.
And it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's only bad when you believe it to be real.
Stop believing it.
When you think that that's all you are.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh well, that's hell itself. That's all suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hell itself.
That's identifying.
That's identifying. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's only one question left, and then we can call it a day. It will be the shortest thing ever. What is real in the moment?
What is real?
Feel it, feel it. What is real? We have to go beyond words and semantics. Real in the moment. Is in the moment real? So that's what's real in the moment?
It's the moment.
It's the moment, yeah.
That's what's real.
Yeah.
There's an awareness present
Uh-huh.
that can see all those other things moving in and out, And that's the reality, that's real, and all the others are a beautiful dance of shadows, or whatever you want to call that.
It's so beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. See, then when you see clearly, and you don't judge anything good or bad, right or wrong, it's just it. When you go back and realize that you are pure awareness, and consciousness comes from it. Pure awareness is pure, the moment itself. You see? And from that comes everything else. And when you see that clearly, you see the moment as it is, you also accept everything else. Because there's nothing outside of God. There's nothing but that. See, there's only light. You know? And that's the most beautiful thing. So I hope that you got something out of this. Okay. Namaste.